Hi, I'm AYANNA Thompson, the director of the Arizona Center for Medieval and Renaissance Studies, and this is the third installment of Exploring Othello 2020. I'm joined by Dawn Monique Williams. Hi,
Hi,
Dawn.
Ayanna.
How are
How's
you?
it? I'm doing all right. I'm doing well. Yeah.
Yeah. What have you been thinking about our dialogue so far?
It's been really great to get to hear from these artists about their firsthand experiences with the play and such different feedback from the people that hate it and the people that love it. And to your point that you made last week, that these are the conversations that artists of color are having about this play in particular and Shakespeare's canon sort of behind closed doors. It's been great to have a sort of public forum to share. And I'm loving hearing these different roles and different voices. That's especially fun.
Me too. I think you've done a great job mixing up the casting with each section. So it's been really fruitful to hear this poetry in different mouths and in different genders and in different races. So thank you for all that you've done.
Oh, it's been
Um,
fun.
yeah, if you're just joining us for the first time, we have an all BIPOC cast doing a reading of Othello through the 4 weeks in October. And this is our third installment, so we're moving towards the end of the play. We have ample time for discussion and for Q&A. If you'd like to pose a question, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. You don't have to wait until the end to pose your questions. Dieris Rhymes. Hi, Dieris.
Hi, good morning, Ayanna.
Good morning. Who's a PhD student who specializes in race in 17th century literature, is our guide through the questions and our tech guru. So actually, Dieris, we have some lingering questions from last week. Can everyone turn on their screens and unmute themselves now? And Dieris, what questions were lingering?
Yes, thank you, Ayanna. And thank you to our virtual audience for sending in such compelling questions. We really appreciate them. So we will start with a question from week 1, and then we will follow up with a question from week 2. So audience, please feel free to send in any other questions you may have as we are discussing these, or as we start the reading for this week as well. So the first question is from Jennifer Roseman, and excuse me, I'm not able to ask the questions myself, so I would just have to verbally ask them. So I apologize for that in advance. But Jennifer asked the question on last week, and I'll just read what she asked, and this is in response to a comment Jessika Williams mentioned. So she says, you mentioned the audience's connection with Iago and their reactions to him, especially their laughter. I watched your performance at ASC and feel like it was a conscious choice to eliminate and downplay the references to honest Iago. Was this a choice on the part of your production team? If so, what was your thought process behind this choice? And ironically, Jessika herself also sent in a question that was very similar to this question. So I'll just kind of ask that as well. And then Jessika, you can respond to it, and then we can open it up for other people to respond as well. So Jessica's question for everyone is, she says, I would love to hear your thoughts about the comedy in Othello. Does it belong in the play? Where is it? What's its function, and does it help or hurt the telling of the story? More specifically, is Rodrigo written as a fool and a comic device? So we'll kind of turn it over to Jessika to dive into that a little bit more, and then we will let others respond to that as well.
Yeah, I don't, as far as the downplaying it, Othello says it a lot. And in our particular production, it was very clear to me that Iago was not a fellow of exceeding honesty. And it seemed very apparent that he was, it was hard to gauge how to play off of my Iago as someone who I honestly trusted, or why I would trust him to begin with. So I guess maybe it seemed like downplaying it, but it was more of like, more of asking the question, like, isn't this guy honest? Like, he's honest, right? Like, he's like, why would he lie to his commander? Like, I have to think of him as being honest because he's my subordinate, you know, like, why would he lie to me? And so instead of really, really leaning into truly believing it, it was more of a choosing to question it. And that's how I kind of navigated my particular relationship with Iago in our production. And it wasn't a conscious choice of the production team. It was just how I was navigating what was happening on stage. And so I'm not sure how that read, but there were some times where I was quite angry at my Iago. And that was, yeah, so that was a personal kind of like acting choice in the moment. And it varied from show to show, depending on how the audience was reacting or not. And kind of going into the other question about the comedy, it's like anytime, you know, if I did kind of say it genuinely and like, you know, this guy's super honest, like I'd get a big roar of laughter from the entire house. And I was always just like, so ticked off by that. And so I made the really beautiful thing about the Blackfriars is because we do everything with the lights on and it's universal lighting, you know, even though people had masks, the performances differ and change every single night depending on who's in the house. So that was a way for me to navigate the response that I was getting from the audience on that particular day. And yeah, I'm just curious about everybody else's thoughts about comedy in this play. The way that we've been reading it, I feel like everyone's kind of giving it a very serious read and really languishing in the language, but there hasn't been a lot of comedic moments. And just in other people's experience with this play, like, is that something that pops up a lot? How do we deal with it? Like, is it there? Is it not there? I don't know.
Just what this just brought to mind for me, Jessica, it's not an answer to your question, but like I spent a lot of time thinking about who gets to laugh and sort of like the power that laughter gives different people in the audience at different points in time. And I wonder, it makes me wonder if over time and in different circumstances, there was more laughter that potentially, you know, we would find horrifying now that existed within this, as opposed to it necessarily like so, that there might have been more humor that isn't the things that we would consider funny now.
Yeah.
May I? Thank you for all of that, Jessica. I watched the streaming of the production on Sunday, so now I have a framework for everything that you were saying, and you were wonderful, by the way. You know, I think there's several things going on with the contemporary laughter. First of all, there are two comic scenes, supposedly comic scenes in the play with clowns that Shakespeare put in there. They're often excised because they're not very funny. But when he wrote the play, I think more people were taking the Iago-Othello relationship seriously. So there wasn't that laughter. He had to stick it in somewhere else. Now that we take that away and we come down the road and people are used to see, they just come back to see the monkey dance, right? So it becomes about, it's like going to see, you know, the midnight showing of Mommy Dearest. We're going to watch this horror show of humanity happen because it's fun, you know, it's such an aberration that we're choosing to go and have a good time. And I think that happens there. And the last thing I want to say is, doesn't what you're saying speak to the nature of good ensemble playing? If nobody is supporting their Othello, if Iago's being this mustache twisting villain, it makes his Othello look like an idiot, right? And if he's not, if he's playing honesty, there is one other point, and that is, you know, I've read scholarship that speaks to how, in the colloquial context, to call somebody honest was kind of a left-handed compliment. It's kind of like Honest John, the shoeshine boy, you know, oh, he's an honest fellow, you know, and that Iago might be pushing back against that, And if that exploration hasn't been done, you can't necessarily filter that in. But mostly, my point is about ensemble playing and who is supporting the Othello, who has this monumental task. And are they just taking advantage of the text that the text gives them and running, because their audience is laughing.
I think that there are a bunch of things at play, and this is a great question, because and this is not something that I coined, but I learned this from my clown professor, and he says, without the possibility of tragedy, comedy cannot exist. And I feel like there are things that are built in, almost like this Hungarian way. I mean, I don't know if you've experienced Hungarian culture, but they have this, specifically Hungarians, they have this deal where they're laughing and crying at the same time, and it's like this crazy pathos where you're just like, what is going on? But to the point of honesty, like I've always taken that word honesty. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you whether you like it or not. I'm going to be frank, and nobody. I mean, so I think Iago has this built-in reputation of, don't ask him because he's going to tell you. Don't ask the questions that you don't want to know the answers to. He's always going to keep it a buck with you. Supposedly, that's like, I'm not afraid of conflict. I'm not afraid of hurting your feelings. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. So that idea of honesty is, I think is something that kind of they gets played on when they land in Cyprus, and he's being going on and on about women, and so it's like, it's almost like the best man who's had a little too many at the wedding reception, and he gets on, or that person that gets on is like, oh God, he's gonna say something that's gonna be really uncomfortable. So there's that like that nakedness of I just have no filter. Do you know what I mean? I'm filter free, and I'm just gonna have no couth, as it were. And I think that there are little moments that are different kinds of humor that's built in, or I guess it depends on the building of with the ensemble. But I feel like Othello and Iago there's room for a little bit of not laughter, but there's a little bit of there's room for humor, personal in private humor, because there's like the play functions on this public and this private level. And when he's talking about Brabantio, there's an opportunity there between Othello and Iago where he's like, let him do his spite. Let that old motherfucker do what he wants to do. You know what I mean? So it's I'm good. You know what I mean? So there's and that's not necessarily like yuck humor, but I think there's definitely there's a personal and a private repartee with the two of them. And like Rodrigo is often played as a fool, but I think he's actually pretty rapey and dangerous. And I think that like the way that we laugh at him, it's almost like, I want to see you get what you deserve because you are a rapist and you are just like a stalker. But when you see how Iago so quickly undoes him, and he's like, I'll sell all my land, like there's a way that there's a foray of humor that's in there, that's not like, oh, he's so stupid, but it's like, he's not like as a foppish kind of way, but he's like, wow, this guy, and that's not necessarily yuck humor again, but I feel like it's not just heavy drama, and it's not just like silly, you know what I mean? There's levels of that can be built in there. So there's different brands of humor that I think can exist within all of the horror. Like, to be able to laugh at someone who's rapey, it's that it goes back to that sort of Hungarian pathos that I was speaking about, where it's like, I don't want to laugh at this, but it's, I have to laugh at him or laugh for, so I think it's in there.
It's such a great point, especially because I think I joke with my students that almost every production I've seen, Rodrigo wears glasses to signal that he's like not cool and someone that you can laugh at. But what if he were like a Jeffrey Epstein kind of figure who actually has enough lands to do what, like enough money to do whatever he wants, and you want someone to get over on him, because I love that idea. And I also love the idea of Keith, that you were bringing up about the ensemble, because I do think it's different if you have a white actor in blackface in an ensemble being supported by the rest of the cast, because I think there's not as much need for self-care, which, Dieris, I think leads into the next question.
Yes, we were kind of out of time. Did you want to still ask it now, or did you want to start there at the beginning of the Q&A?
Okay, we'll hold on to that. You're right, timing wise. Dawn, will you set the stage for us?
Yes, so we're going to continue where we left off last week. So just to recap, we went through the temptation scene last week. Iago's planted the seeds of doubt with Othello regarding Desdemona's fidelity. Desdemona's dropped the handkerchief. Emilia's collected it, passed it off to Iago. Not really sure why she's done that. And we're going to pick up right here at Act 3, Scene 4, with Desdemona and Emilia searching for the lost handkerchief. I did drop in the chat for all attendees who's reading today. So in our first scene, we have Desdemona being read by Maddie, Emilia being read by Felicia, Othello being read by Alfredo, Iago being read by Jessica, Cassio being read by Peter. We'll take a brief pause, do some more discussion, and then we'll jump ahead a little and pick up with Othello being read by Keith, Iago being read by Peter, Lodovico being read by Jennifer, Desdemona being read by Jessica, and Emilia being read by Fran. You can see that there in the chat if you need the reminder. So off we go with Act 3, Scene 4. Enter Desdemona and Emilia.
Where should I lose that handkerchief, Emilia?
I know not, madam.
Believe me, I had rather lost my purse full of cruzados. And but my noble Moor is true of mind, and made of no such baseness as jealous creatures are. It were enough to put him to ill thinking.
Is he not jealous?
Who, he? I think the sun where he was born drew all such humors from him.
Look where he comes.
I will not leave him now till Cassio be called to him. How is it with you, my lord?
Well, my good lady, our hardness to dissemble. How do you, Desdemona?
Well, my good lord.
Give me your hand. This hand is moist, my lady.
It yet hath felt no age, nor known no sorrow.
This argues fruitfulness and liberal heart. Hot, and moist. This hand of yours requires a sequester from liberty, fasting and prayer, much castigation, exercise devout. For here's a young and sweating devil here that commonly rebels. 'Tis a good hand, a frank one.
You may indeed say so, for 'twas that hand that gave away my heart.
A liberal hand. The hearts of old gave hands, but our new heraldry is hands, not hearts.
I cannot speak of this. Come, now, your promise.
What promise, Chuck?
I have sent to bid Cassio come speak with you.
I have a salt and sullen room offends me. Lend me that handkerchief.
Here, my lord.
That which I gave you.
I have it not about me.
Not?
No, faith, my lord.
That's a fault. That handkerchief did an Egyptian to my mother give. She was a charmer and could almost read the thoughts of people. She told her, while she kept it, 'twould make her amiable and subdue my father entirely to her love. But if she lost it, or made a gift of it, my father's eye should hold her loathed, and her spirits should hunt after new fancies. She, dying, gave it me, and bid me, when my fate would have me wive, to give it her. I did so, and take heed on it. Make it a darling like your precious eye. To lose it or give it away were such perdition as nothing else could match.
It's possible.
'Tis true, there's magic in the web of it. A Sibyl that had numbered in the world the sun to course 200 compasses, in her prophetic fury sowed the work. The worms were hallowed that did breed the silk, and it was dyed in mummy which the skillful conserved of maidens' hearts.
Faith, is it true?
Most veritable. Therefore look to it well.
Then would to God that I had never seen it.
Huh. Wherefore?
Why do you speak so startlingly and rash?
Is it lost? Is it gone? Speak, is it out of the way?
Heaven bless us.
Say you?
It is not lost, but what and if it were?
How?
I say it is not lost.
Touch it. Let me see it.
Why, so I can, sir, but I will not now. This is a trick to put me from my suit. Pray you, let Cassio be received again.
Fetch me the handkerchief, my mind misgives.
Come, you'll never meet a more sufficient man.
The handkerchief.
I pray, talk me of Cassio.
The handkerchief.
A man that all his time hath founded his good fortunes on your love, shared dangers with you.
The handkerchief.
Faith, you are to blame.
Zoons.
Is not this man jealous?
I ne'er saw this before. Sure, there's some wonder in this handkerchief. I am most unhappy at the loss of it.
'Tis not a year or two shows us a man. They are all but stomachs, and we all but food. They eat us hungrily, and when they are full, they belch us. Look you, Cassio and my husband.
There's no other way. 'Tis she must do it, and lo, the happiness. Go and importune her.
How now, good Cassio? What's the news with you?
Madam, my former suit. I do beseech you that by your virtuous means I may again exist and be a member of his love, whom I, with all the office of my heart, entirely honor. I would not be delayed.
Alas, thrice gentle Cassio, my advocation is not now in tune. My lord is not my lord, nor should I know him were he in favor as in humor altered. So help me in every spirit sanctified, as I have spoken for you all my best, and stood within the blank of his displeasure for my free speech. You must a while be patient. What I can do, I will, and more I will than for myself I dare. Let that suffice you.
Is my lord angry?
He went hence but now, and certainly in strange unquietness.
Can he be angry? I've seen the cannon when it hath blown his ranks into the air, and like the devil from his very arm puffed his own brother. And can he be angry? Something of a moment then. Now, I will go meet him. There's matter in it indeed, if he be angry.
I prithee, do so. Something sure of state, either from Venice or some unhatched practice made demonstrable here in Cyprus to him, hath puddled his clear spirit. And hey, we mustn't think men are not gods, nor of them look for such observancy as fits the bridal. Beshrew me much, Amelia, I was, unhandsome warrior as I am, arraigning his unkindness with my soul. But now I find I had suborned the witness, and he's indicted falsely.
Pray, heaven it be, state matters as you think, and no conception, nor no jealous toy concerning you.
Alas the day, I never gave him cause.
But jealous souls will not be answered so. They are not ever jealous for the cause, but jealous for their jealous. It is a monster begot upon itself, born onto itself.
Heaven keep that monster from Othello's mind.
Lady, amen.
I will go seek him. Cassio, walk here about. If I do find him fit, I'll move your suit and seek to effect it to my uttermost.
I humbly thank your ladyship.
Great, and we will pause there, Ayanna, and have a little discussion.
Yeah, Maddie, your Desdemona was so innocent.
How do you think that's funny? Because it was me?
Yes, I think it is funny because it was you. Who is your Desdemona? We've talked a little bit about this last week, but I wonder in this scene, who is she for you? And you're muted, so you'll have to unmute yourself.
No, I muted myself intentionally, so any weird sounds like. Okay, well, I mean, so the tricky thing is when I saw that I had to read this, I went, oh no, and then I went, oh no, Desdemona, oh no.
You're welcome.
Because, yeah, I know. Because then after our conversation yesterday, I was like, oh, I would rather her be. But the problem is, she says so soon in the scene, her hand hath known no age nor known no sorrow, whatever the line is. And there's something about having not experienced any sorrow that makes it hard to really, if you haven't experienced any sorrow, there's only so not innocent you can be. It doesn't mean you can't be strong. It doesn't mean you can't be lots of other things. But if you haven't known any sorrow, then you're not expecting whatever's to come. And that I think is what sort of like, despite all of my secret desires to be like, I'm gonna be like, fuck you, Othello. Like, I'm not, that's just not.
But she has known sorrows. Like, clearly her mother's gone. Her maid Barbary, who we hear about later, is gone as well. So she has known sorrows. I think, is she playing innocent in this moment?
Maybe that's probably better. That's probably what an actual actor would do and be smart.
Not a director.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's tricky because the thing though is she genuinely, it seems like, does not expect Othello to be jealous though, which I think is interesting. Because she says so much to the opposite, just textually. That's not to say that like, everyone doesn't know all men are jealous to some degree, but she seems to very specifically think that Othello is incapable of jealousy, which I think is interesting.
And Alfredo, you've never played Othello before so what's it like for you?
It's upsetting, definitely, to have that sort of emotion. But same thing, when I saw it, I was like, oh shit, I have to get underneath that. I think about the tragic flaw of Othello, and people always say that it's jealousy. But to me, that's just a symptom of a deeper issue, which is insecurity. And if you go along with the idea of sort of the assimilationist mentality again, and a mercenary who is selling their services and they feel they can buy acceptance, then they are buying into this culture where they perceive themselves as damaged goods. And so it's very easy to like get in there and manipulate that. And I also feel like Rodrigo is a great example of that too, because I feel like he's just sort of a beta male. We talk about that, and it's very easy, I think, to manipulate that beta male mentality, almost to comic ends sometimes. But in Othello, we have a very formidable person here, but yet it's the way he perceives himself in terms of this culture where he like constantly sort of like denigrates himself in some way. Because I think in the beginning, it's not an issue. And then as soon as the seed is planted, then all of a sudden jealousy enters the picture. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting to sort of, I guess, view it, socially like that, or sociologically.
I think it's interesting, going back into that assimilation thing, like jealousy is almost something that is a learned behavior, like culturally. Like there are cultures around the world who do not experience jealousy because they don't know what it is to be like, that's mine. And like Iago really lays that groundwork. What's his is his, what's mine is mine. It's this, it's nothing, in a way kind of like lays that groundwork and like teaches Othello what jealousy is in that moment, because I think Othello after that also is like, what is jealousy? Like that's not me. I don't know what you're talking about. And then Iago like thoroughly explains like, this is what it is. And it's like, okay, well, if these are the people that I'm supposed to like strive to become, if this is the culture that I'm supposed to be in, then I also have to adopt like these thoughts, and then he's got that little soliloquy where he wrangles, back and forth. At first he's like, oh dude, I'll let her go. And then like really thinks about it in terms of his like his position and his name and whatnot. And I don't know, it's fascinating, but I like the idea of jealousy as a learned behavior.
Great. Yeah. I mean, and to view like women as erotic property too is a crazy concept too, that, anyway, yeah, I completely agree with you.
I also think it's interesting, just in terms of Ayanna, your question before though, that she does know enough to lie in this scene, because also like early canon, it's sort of like there's a point in the canon where essentially like Shakespeare's women are allowed to lie without becoming just evil, but like it's still significant if a female character is lying in a scene, and so I just find that interesting, that in terms of what you were saying about innocence or not innocence, if she really was innocent, she probably I'm sure they know that.
She's like, I lost it, dude. I don't know. Like, why wouldn't she say I lost it?
In the sense that like maybe if it dropped somewhere in her house, right? It actually isn't lost. It's somewhere. It's like if you leave your, I'm a smoker, and if
that's a whole lot of mental gymnastics, though. I'm gonna say.
But
Because if I lost my keys in my house, I would still be like, they're lost, not like, well, they're somewhere in there.
Yeah, but you might still find them, right? It's not like you go right to the store and get a new set of keys.
True.
Like take the time to be like, keys.
Fran, you look like you wanted in. I saw something go over your face. Hop in there.
I don't think I had anything to add. It is clear that Othello is being manipulated, and that Desdemona is lying, and it's spinning its own web there, and people will eventually pay dearly for it. Yeah, truth is a good idea.
Yeah,
from everybody.
And it
people
is
should.
True. It is true that everyone in the play lies, right? Is there anyone who, I mean, maybe some of the like Slater ancillary characters don't, but Iago lies, Emilia lies, Othello lies, Desdemona lies. So I know there have been a few productions that try and explore that maybe that's covering up some past relationships. Maybe Desdemona had a relationship with Cassio in the past. I mean, again, like I think that's a whole lot of work to do, but it is interesting to realize that they're not truthful characters to each other.
Which is why I always posit.
Sorry,
I'm sorry. Did I step on someone? Sorry, it's hard to know. Always posit that she is not this little innocent thing, but I feel like because of that, they have this. Othello and Desdemona have this thing, this opposites attract, this pure, this thing that, you know, this love. Do you know what I mean? Like of this really pure place, and I think that is the thing that ultimately, that's the thing that undoes him, like just a little crack in the armor, and the thing that doesn't allow her to see that crack is growing is because they by hook or by crook, they cross the stars. And I mean, I'm a romantic, right? So they found each other and they have this thing that just would not, like, that's the last thing in the world that either of them would be suspecting or would come to without. And then I think that also there's a great amount of hubris that Othello has, and, you know, which is earned. And I wonder, you know, about the discussion of, I mean, I feel like his insecurities stem from his physical condition more so than you know, assimilating, because, you know, I mean, if you've killed people for a living and you made the choice, I feel like he's made the choice to stop doing that. And when he's found this love to, you know, see how the other half lives with, I don't know, possibly children or legacy, or just thinking about these things, like thinking about life other than just for himself, which I think makes him incredibly vulnerable. That, you know, so that, like, I don't think that he's ever, I personally don't think that I don't think that he's ever full of doubt about, you know, assimilating, but I just think he, or being accepted, but just he doesn't want to be exposed. Like, you know, and I think that line that Iago has in Venice, you know, they dare not, they show gods what they don't show their husbands. He's, you know, he has a lot to learn, you know, about Venetian society, and I think that as a tactician and a practicer of war, like Sun Tzu, that he doesn't. I don't think he does well with not enough information, with lack of information. You know what I'm saying? I think that he needs. So I mean, I think that those are the things that are really working on his nerve, and this new love thing. And from her, like, I mean, you know, yeah, like I'm gonna lie because I know that, you know, I have this handkerchief all the time. I know that it means a lot to you, and you gave it to me, and, you know, and if I, you know, anyway, I'm babbling, but I mean, I think that she's smart enough, as you said, she's smart enough to know when to lie. Yeah, I mean, you know, because she just had it, so I know she knows that it's not, you know, like, just, you know, so.
So maybe, Dawn, should you fill us in where we're going next?
Absolutely. We are going to continue our reading. We're going to jump ahead just a bit into Act 4, Scene 1. We'll pick up already inside the scene. So this is what you've missed. We've been introduced to the character Bianca, who is a courtesan about the town that Cassio has taken up with. Cassio, having found the handkerchief in his dormitory, asked Bianca to make him a replica of it. Iago, continuing to kind of make this web, sets up a sort of deception for Othello, where Iago then has a conversation with Cassio, and Othello is hiding, and Iago sort of gets Cassio to admit to an inappropriate relationship with Desdemona, and they are laughing and it's banter, but all the while Cassio is really talking about Bianca, but Othello does not know that. Then we have Bianca show back up with the handkerchief and sort of rail against Cassio, saying this is some other woman's trinket that you're giving me, and Othello also witnesses all of that. So we're kind of coming right off of seeing Cassio with the handkerchief in his hand, the ocular proof, as it were, that Othello had been asking for. So again, the casting is dropped in the chat, and Cassio has just left, and Iago and Othello begin their conversation. We'll jump right in on 93, Keith.
Shall we start?
Yes, please.
How shall I murder him, Iago?
Did you perceive how he laughed at his vice?
Iago.
And did you see the handkerchief?
Was that mine?
Yours, by this hand. And to see how he prizes the foolish woman, your wife. She gave it him, and he hath given it his whore.
Would have him 9 years a killing. A fine woman, a fair woman, a sweet woman.
Nay, you must forget that.
Aye, let her rot and perish and be damned tonight, for she shall not live. No, my heart is turned to stone. I strike it, and it hurts my hand. Oh, the world hath not a sweeter creature. She might lie by an emperor's side and command him tasks.
Nay, that's not your way.
Hang her, I do but say what she is. So delicate with her needle, an admirable music. She will sing the savageness out of a bear, of so high and plenteous wit and invention.
The worse for all this.
A thousand times. And then of so gentle a condition.
Aye, too gentle.
Nay, the certain, yet the pity of it, Iago. Oh, Iago, the pity of it, Iago.
If you are so fond over her iniquity, give her patent to offend, for if it touch not you, it comes near nobody.
I will chop her into messes. Cuckold me.
Oh, 'tis foul.
With mine officer!
Oh, that's fouler.
Get me some poison, Iago, this night. I'll not expostulate with her, lest her body and beauty unprovide my mind again. This night, Iago.
Do it not with poison. Strangle her in her bed. Even the bed she hath contaminated.
Good. Good. The justice of it pleases. Very good.
And for Cassio, let me be his undertaker. You shall hear more by midnight.
Excellent. Good. What trumpet is that same?
I warrant something from Venice. 'Tis Lodovico. This comes from the Duke. See, your wife's with him.
God save you, worthy general.
With all my heart, sir.
The Duke and senators of Venice greet you.
I kiss the instrument of their pleasures.
And what's the news, good cousin Lodovico?
I'm very glad to see you, Signor. Welcome to Cyprus.
I thank you. How does Lieutenant Cassio?
Lives, sir.
Cousin, there's fallen between him and my lord an unkind breach, but you shall make it all well.
Are you sure of that?
My lord?
This fell you not to do. as you will see that there needs to be some.
He did not call, he's busy in the paper. Is there division twixt my lord and Cassio?
A most unhappy one. I would do much to atone them for the love I bear to Cassio.
Fire and brimstone!
My lord.
Are you wise?
What, is he angry?
Maybe the letter moved him, for as I think they do command him home, deputing Cassio in his government.
By my troth, I'm glad on it.
Indeed.
My lord?
I am glad to see you mad.
Why, sweet Othello.
Devil.
I have not deserved this.
My lord, this would not be believed in Venice, though I should swear I saw it. 'Tis very much. Make her amends, she weeps.
Devil. Devil. If that the earth could teem with woman's tears, each drop she falls would prove a crocodile out of my sight.
I will not stay to offend you.
Truly, an obedient lady. I do beseech your lordship, call her back.
Mistress!
My lord?
What would you with her, sir?
Who, I, my lord?
Aye, you did wish that I would make her turn. Sir, she can turn and yet go on and turn again. And she can weep, sir. Weep! And she's obedient. As you say, obedient, very obedient. Proceed you in your tears. Concerning this, sir, oh well-painted passion, I am commanded home. Get you away, I'll send for you anon. Sir, I obey the mandate and will return to Venice. Hence, avaunt! Cassio shall have my place, and sir, tonight I do entreat that we may sup together. You are welcome, sir, to Cyprus. Goats and monkeys.
Is this the noble Moor, whom our full Senate call all in all sufficient? This, the nature whom passion could not shake, whose solid virtue the shot of accident nor dart of chance could neither graze nor pierce?
He is much changed.
Are his wits safe? Is he not light of brain?
He's that he is. I may not breathe my censure what he might be, if what he might be he is not. I would to heaven he were.
What? Strike his wife?
Faith, that was not so well. Yet would I knew that stroke would prove the worst.
Is it his use? Or did the letters work upon his blood and new create this fault?
Alas, alas, it is not honesty in me to speak what I have seen and known. You shall observe him, and his own courses will denote him, so that I may save my speech. But do but go after and mark how he continues.
I am sorry that I am deceived in him.
You have seen nothing.
Mr. Othello and Amelia.
You have seen nothing, then.
Nor ever heard, nor ever did suspect.
Yes, you have seen Cassio and she together.
But then I saw no harm, and then I heard each syllable that breath made up between them.
What, did they never whisper?
Never, my lord.
Nor send you out of the way?
Never.
To fetch her fan, her gloves, her mask, nor nothing?
Never, my lord.
That's strange.
I durst, my lord, to wager she is honest, lay down my soul at stake. If you think other, remove your thought. It doth abuse your bosom. If any wretch hath put this in your head, let heaven requite it with the serpent's curse. For if she be not honest, chaste, and true, there's no man happy. The purest of their wives is foul as slander.
Bid her come hither. Go. She says enough. Yet she's a subtle bawd that cannot say as much. This is a subtle whore, a closet lock and key of villainous secrets. Yet she will kneel and pray. I have seen her do it.
My lord, what is your will?
Pray, Chuck, come hither.
What is your pleasure?
Let me see your eyes. Look in my face.
What horrible fancy is this?
Some of your function, mistress. Leave procreants alone and shut the door. Cough or cry hem if anybody come. Your mystery. Dispatch!
Upon my knees, what doth your speech import? I understand the fury in your words, but not the words.
Why, what art thou?
Your wife, my lord, your true and loyal wife.
Come, swear it. Damn thyself, lest, being like one of heaven, the devils themselves should fear to seize thee. Therefore be double damned. Swear thou art honest.
Heaven doth truly know it.
Heaven truly knows that thou art false as hell.
To whom, my lord? With whom? How am I false?
Desdemona, away, away, away.
Alas, the heavy day. Why do you weep? Am I the motive of these tears, my lord? If haply you, my father, do suspect an instrument of this your calling back, lay not your blame on me. If you have lost him, why, I have lost him too.
Had it pleased heaven to try me with affliction, had they rained all kinds of sores and shames on my bare head, steeped me in poverty to the very lips, given to captivity me and my utmost hopes, I should have found in some place of my soul a drop of patience. But alas, to make me the fixed figure for the time of scorn to point his slow, unmoving finger at. Yet I could bear that too. Well, very well. But there, where I have garnered up my heart, where either I must live or bear no life, the fountain from the which my current runs or else dries up, to be discarded thence, or keep it as a cistern for foul toads to knot and gender in. Turn your complexion there, Patience, thou young and rose-lipped cherubin. Aye, here, look, grim as hell.
I hope my noble lord esteems me honest.
Oh, aye, as summer flies are in the shambles that quicken even with blowing. Oh, thou weed, who are so lovely fair, and smell so sweet that the sense aches at thee, wouldst thou hadst never been born.
Alas, what ignorant sin have I committed?
Was this fair paper, this most goodly book, made to write whore upon? What committed, oh, public commoner. I should make very forges of my cheeks that would to cinders burn up modesty, did I but speak thy deeds. What committed? Heaven stops the nose at it, and the moon winks. The body wind that kisses all it meets is hushed within the hollow mine of earth and will not hear it. What committed? Impudent strumpet!
By heaven, you do me wrong.
Are you not a strumpet?
No, as I am a Christian. If to preserve this vessel for my lord, from any hated foul unlawful touch be not a strumpet, I am none.
What? Not a whore?
No, as I shall be saved.
Is possible?
Heaven forgive us.
I cry you mercy then. I took you for the cunning whore of Venice that married with Othello. You, mistress, that have the office opposite to St. Peter and keep the gates of hell. You. We have done our course. There's money for your pains. I pray you turn the key and keep our counsel.
Alas, what does this gentleman conceive? How do you, madam? How do you, my good lady?
Faith, half asleep.
Oh, good madam, what's the matter with my lord?
Whom?
Why, with my lord, madam.
Who is thy lord?
He that is yours, sweet lady.
I have none. Do not talk to me, Amelia. I cannot weep, nor answers have I none, but what should go, I cannot weep, nor answers have I none, but what should go by water. Prithee, tonight lay on my bed my wedding sheets. Remember, and call thy husband hither.
Here's a change indeed.
'Tis meet I should be used so, very meet. How have I been behaved that might he stick the smallest opinion on my greatest misuse?
What is your pleasure, madam? How is it with you?
I cannot tell. Those that do teach young babes do it with gentle means and easy tasks. He might have chid me so, for in good faith, I am a child chiding.
What is the matter, lady?
Alas, Iago, my lord hath so behorred her, thrown such despite and heavy terms upon her, that true hearts cannot bear it.
Am I that name, Iago?
What name, fair lady?
Such as she said my lord did say I was.
He called her whore. A beggar in his drink could not have laid such terms upon his callet.
Why did he so?
I do not know. I am sure I am none such.
But we do not weep, alas, the day.
Hath she forsook so many noble matches, her father and her country and her friends, to be called whore? Would it not make one weep?
It is my wretched fortune.
He shrew him for't. How comes this trick upon him?
Nay, heaven doth know.
I will be hanged if some eternal villain, some busy and insinuating rogue, some cogging, cozening slave to get some office, have not devised this slander. I'll be hanged else.
Aye, there is no such man. It is impossible.
If any such there be, heaven pardon him.
A halter pardon him, and hell gnaw his bones. Why should he call her whore? Who keeps her company? What place? What time? What form? What likelihood? The more's abused by some most villainous knave, some base notorious knave, some scurvy fellow. Oh, heaven, that such companions thou'dst unfold and put in every honest hand a whip to lash the rascals naked through the world, even from the east to the west.
Speak within doors.
Fie upon them! Some such squire he was that turned your wit the seamy side without, and made you to suspect me with the more.
You're a fool. Go to.
Oh, God, Iago, what shall I do to win my lord again? Good friend, go to him, for by this light of heaven I know not how I lost him. Here I kneel. If e'er my will did trespass against his either in discourse of thought or actual deed, or that mine eyes, mine ears, or any sense delighted them in any other form, or that I do not yet, and ever did, and ever will, thought he do shake me off to beggarly divorcement, I love him dearly. Comfort forswear me. Unkindness may do much, and his unkindness may defeat my life, but never taint my love. I cannot say whore. It does abhor me now I speak the word, to do the act that might the addiction earn, to do the act that might the addition earn, not the world's mass of vanity could make me.
I pray you, be content. 'Tis but his humor. The business of the state does him offense, and he does chide with you.
If 'twere no other.
'Tis but so, I warrant. Hark, how these instruments summon to supper. The messengers of Venice stay the meat. Go in and weep not. All things shall be well.
Right. And that is where we will conclude our reading for today.
Wow. Fran, I love your Amelia.
Thank you. Sorry. It's muted. Yeah.
Particularly when she said hell gnaw his bones, I was just like, I just want Fran, a little like version of Fran to show up at random times and tell hell to gnaw people's.
But it's true, because there's something about her, which is the friend who's going to tell you the truth, right? Which is what Othello doesn't have. He doesn't have the friend who's going to tell him the truth, but he's thinking that Iago is that person. So does Amelia at all suspect when she's saying someone must have put this in his mind?
One could do that. I try really hard with this bard to take him at face value, that if you say something, that's probably what you mean. But yes, there's room there for her to be suspicious and be talking very specifically about him. But then I don't know what she does in the last scene, when she does seem to be surprised that things have fallen out poorly and she's been privy to it all along.
She's, oh God, oh heavenly God. Like when she's like, I thought this, but I didn't want to think this. I thought, you know what I mean? So like, again, I think that's another opportunity for an actor to really play to win, to play against my doubts. No. And then when they're on doubt, like, then I feel like the reward of that in the end, she's like, because then it, you know, like you said, take me as I'm going to leave you. I'm going to cry. I don't care about my life anymore. I'm done. I've stuffed. I've suffered enough. And, you know, it, yeah. So, I mean, God, but what felt really great, what felt really great to hear is, a tough and strong Desdemona coming in. What do you want? Like, you hit me. What? Like, is this where we are now? Like this, you know, because I feel like that gives her ammunition to then get down. I mean, and take it to God. You know what I mean? To take it to, you know, like to get down on my knees. And it just, when you see people fighting, like when she's fighting and she's not just a victim, but she's fighting to like find out the truth. I mean, that's more interesting to me. And just like with Emilia, she's fighting like to, you know, to be functional in a dysfunctional, you know, when she knows him. So yeah, in the back of her mind, I think that there is that seed, but like that says, then that begins a conversation with her about more. It says more about her, which, you know, that's a bigger conversation, like then because then she has to really question why she's with this man.
Yeah. Jessica, how did it feel for you?
Really weird, but cool, because I feel like in the text that Desdemona's given, that this actually is a scene where you do get to see a little bit of fight and an agency and work come out of her. Like, and I feel like she is intelligent, and she's, you know, nor felt no sorrow, right? Maybe it's like, this has never been this scenario has never played out in her head before, nor has she heard it, you know, from any other woman or any other person. You know, she gets a lot of her like female talk and her chick talk from Emilia, you know, but it's like, this is not an imaginary thing that's ever occurred to her. And it's fun playing it with a little bit of fight. And one thing that we didn't have it in our text, I don't think we did, but the laying of the wedding sheets, when she tells Emilia to go do that, right? I feel like when I've experienced this play before, it for me, it always just feels like foreshadowing. It's like, well, does she know what's about to happen to her? Or is that her kind of innocent logic of like, this is how I prove to you that I'm not a whore. Like, let's get the wedding sheets out. Let's redo our wedding night, you know? And like, let me prove to you that like, you are my man. But like, that's, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think of in that moment, right? Yeah. After a pretty kind of like aggressive, emotional, abusive moment, to be like, I know what to do. Let's recreate our wedding night. I don't know. It's so odd to me.
But also, like, I've not seen this in a production, but of course, by asking to get the wedding sheets, you're asking for the bloody proof that she was a virgin when they were first together. So I've never seen a production where they're like, spread out the bloody sheets.
Let's get the magnifying glass, you know?
So Keith, how about for you, returning to Othello? What was it like, and how was the scene for you?
I think that Othello has to listen. He has to listen to what people are saying, because that's the only way that he can think about it, and the audience can process him processing what is being said. That's really all I have to say. Is that it is of tantamount importance that the audience see him working through what is truth, what is not, what is fact, what is fiction, what do I need to do, why do I need to do it, so that and allowing himself room for his own emotional state in all this, and so he listens to, he's watched the thing happen, and I think from the moment that the scene starts, he's processing, okay, what did I just watch happen? Iago's saying it's this, but I have this data from before. I'm feeling these things. I don't know quite what to do with it. I really want to kill her. I'm not sure why. And throughout into the scene with Desdemona, I think there is the opportunity there that he might just say, "Oh, yeah, oh, you're not really, because you're awfully adamant about that, and I love you, and I know that person, and you know, and I think if we work really hard, we can get the audience to believe that, no matter how many times they've seen this play."
Yes, I think you're absolutely right that is the hope and the promise in that scene, is that he might actually come to his senses and be like, "Oh, of course you haven't cheated on me. We love each other." I haven't seen it played that way often.
Something just occurred to me, and I didn't read it this way, but now it would have been interesting to do it if we have a Desdemona who's like kind of just brushing, like, "What are you talking about?" You know, like, instead of a kind of earnest, like, no, but like what you just said right there, like really dropped a coin, like her being adamant about it. What if she's like, "How dare you insult me?" You know, and she has that flippant, you know, which I feel like, you know, can be intimidating for men and or people in general. And then having that insecurity, like, validated with someone who's kind of brushing you off and rolling their eyes, like, in a way kind of furthers, or it makes that a little bit more, makes it believable that Othello doesn't do that in that moment. You know, if we have someone who's just kind of like, get out of here with your toxic masculinity. You know what I mean? Like, no one's going to receive that well, but I've never seen it done that way. But
also then how would that Desdemona play the bit about like, "Oh, I can't say whore. It does abhor me." Like, you'd have to, maybe you play it like really jokingly. I don't know. Jennifer, I loved your Lodovico because you gave him real anger, which again, I haven't seen often. It's usually like, oh, like more surprise, like, "Oh, is this what's happening here?" But I think by validating that there was real violence done, that you raised the stakes. So I'm wondering how you thought about it.
Thank you. Well, I thought about it because I really feel for the women in this play. I really feel for them. And I, like, Jessica, what you just said about having, you know, like Desdemona playing it not so earnestly, like the earnestness, whenever I've seen or, you know, taken in this play with like a very earnest Desdemona, it sort of makes me despise her a little bit, because it just feels so naive and so sheltered. Like I just can't have much sympathy for her, because like her reaction to being called a whore is so different than, say, in The Winter's Tale, you know, like a woman who stands there and is like, not guilty, you know, like, period, versus Desdemona being like, "Iago, am I a whore?" It's like, do you keep asking this? Like, you tell us, honey. But the violence against the women in this play, whether it be like physical or emotional, feels really, really present to me throughout. So I was happy to have that moment to read today.
Great. Maddie, go ahead.
I was just thinking about, so, because I had a plan. I was like, I am not going to be innocent. I had like this plan when I went into that scene. But the text actually makes it kind of hard to, like, the way that the actual sentences are structured, like, you actually have to do work with the vowels and the things that you're given to then say, like, this isn't sincere the entire time. And so that's just something, because I brought up a little bit last week, thinking about the things that are extra textual, thinking about the things that are not in the text, the things that we're making choices in a production that are separate from the text, and like what we can do with that, I think is really important. But that I just wanted to like acknowledge that I was like, I had a plan. I was like, I am going to be able to do this. And then I was like, this is not what's coming out of my mouth. And I think part of that was because without like any rehearsal or any actual like planning in terms of how I was going to do that, like the words themselves, if they are true, do lend themselves towards a certain kind of, I don't want to say pathetic, but like what Jennifer was saying, like there's a reason why they so often, I think, come off that way, that it takes work to actually, I think, take the characters and bring them to a place where you're actually grappling with the thing, beyond what's just there in the text.
Well, and can I just
Yes, please, Jennifer. Go ahead.
just take that back to the beginning of our conversation today, which is that one of the things that frustrates me about Desdemona in particular is that she feels like one of many of the Bard's female characters where you do have to make so many choices that are not, like outside of the text in order to make it work. And it, like Othello, or it really depends on having a director, a company, a crew backstage. I mean, there are certain roles that there is an emotional cost to playing. And the repeated action of 8 times a week, like going from being, like the king of your castle to murdering your wife, that takes a toll. And if you don't have the kind of people surrounding you on that journey as you create it and then present it to the world, it damages the actor. It damages your psyche, and it makes you afraid to jump in and make bold sorts of choices like that turn her into like not a sort of drippy, make her a more proactive participant in this story.
So I think this speaks directly to the question that we had just held off from before. So Dieris, do you want to pose that question from the audience member?
Yes, absolutely. And the question was from Eric Brinkman last week, and it was in regards to one of Peter's reaction. And he asked, do any of the actors want to talk about the self-care practices they employ after playing a stressful role, or how supported or unsupported they feel in their process? I think this is a really important question.
It's been, I think, having had the opportunity to dance with this 4 times, it's been a little different each time. The first time I was actually going through a divorce. That was a lot of fun. So my self-care involved a lot of whiskey, and that didn't. But it was all I could do to sort of just numb everything out and have enough so I can sleep and do it again. Now, it's play. You know what I mean? And just having, like I feel like there's like I think Susan Sarandon said once on Inside the Actor's Studio that the only time the theater actor relaxes is at curtain call. You know what I mean? Because then the whole next day, the whole next day before, half hour, it's just, I'm in my head or just picturing the dive or just in it and just connected to it. And it's like a 3-month triathlon or something, it's just very intense, and is very happy when it's over. But not playing the whole of the play. You're just playing scene by scene by scene by scene. Just going back to, I just want to, before I forget this, going back to what the previous conversation was, is that I think that this is what we struggle with as a company of modern creatives, modern interpreters of Shakespeare, is that we have to make this palpable for us. Like, because I think historically, like Desdemona's like 15 and Othello is in his 50s or something like that. I don't want to watch that play. You know what I mean? I'm not interested in some, so he has the language in there about, his sexual needs or his being absent from him, and I just don't we can't, that's not, you can't sell that to a modern audience. You just can't sell that. You know what I mean? We're not going for that, and so we have a lot of acrobatics to do to make it palpable, so that the core of the story is ingestible. So but yeah, that's just, and that's the reason why we do it, right? I mean, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that, because I know that that's a huge part of this, is making all these justifications, but it's because we've grown a little bit. as a species, as storytellers. So that red flags pop up where we're just like, I don't want to see that play, and the audience, I don't want to play that play to an audience, because that's so many things have happened that.
But also, it would have been a white man in blackface opposite a boy in whiteface,
right,
playing Desdemona, right? Like, let's remember that Desdemona wasn't portrayed by a female actor, but by a boy actor in whiteface makeup. So
right.
Both roles were impersonations. And I wonder, like, did those actors need self-care afterwards, or is it only just to amplify your point, Peter, that like we're in a very different performance tradition now, where we expect women's parts to be played by women and Black parts to be played by actors of color. And we fought hard to get to that place, right? Like, I don't want to minimize that, but is that actually healthy? And I think this gets, again, circling back to the self-care. Was self-care something that Shakespeare's company needed to do?
I mean, they probably drank a lot of whiskey too, to be fair, but I don't know if it was for the same reasons, you know?
Yeah, I think they probably didn't need a lot of self-care, because the whole idea of what acting was a completely different thing. You know, it was very representational, and you did this, you looked like this, people got the story, and they went home. Shakespeare was not a psychologist. He wasn't writing psychodrama. He was a good storyteller. Yeah, get up, do this, rip and read. These are your sides. We're open tonight. Let's go. Yeah. So I don't think there was a lot of thought then. But why are we actors? Because we like the pain. Come on. I mean, what other? I mean, when I say we like the pain, we like going deep. We like discovering who these people are. We like investing in it. I always tell my students, acting costs something. Yeah. It's not free. It's just not free. It's never going to be free. But yeah, you do have to take care of yourself. And I like Peter. At the curtain call, I am so happy. I always think of acting in a production like childbirth. You go through labor, and then the baby's out and you feel fine. Yeah. And that's what happens every single day. You have to go through the labor again, and you have to do it. And yes, it's usually about 11 o'clock or noon the day of, and it starts to sort of sink in there, and then I have to try to find something to eat or keep hydrated and try not to think about it, but I love that. I'm sorry, I'm a masochist.
Well, I feel like it's that place of that ultimate place of being a conduit, yeah, like to be wielding all of your facility, like where you're able to dance on vowels and consonants, and all those little specific things matter, and it's like you've never done it. It's magical. It's like you've never done it before, and you're not thinking about tomorrow. It's that inhabiting that space where you're literally wielding. It's almost like a Prospero kind of feeling, where you're just like in touch with this kinespheric awareness, and you're just and that's it's an addiction. It's not even an addiction. It's like that's living, and anything but that is like, I'm after that. I want that.
I also sometimes say to people, if you really want to know who I am, see me on stage. Everything else is an act.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like it's in a run of a show. It's an emotional playground of self-exploration, right? Like kind of what you're saying, Fran, in the sense that like you're touching on aspects and parts of yourself that you don't necessarily get to play on a daily basis. But that takes preparation and self-care.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of protect yourself in a certain way. And sometimes the self-care isn't really I agree. It was a lot of wine and a lot of whiskey at the end of the night, because I would wake up. I did it today. I woke up with literally speaking Othello lines in my head. It was like the first thing that popped into my head, and I'm like, gotta get rid of that. But it lingers for a while. It's always fascinating to hear about other people's self-care practices. I started running all of a sudden. I've never been a runner. I've hated running, and I basically ran a 5K before every single show. And a lot of that was getting out, I think, or shedding some aggression and feelings and displaced energy that wasn't going to be useful in the performance. It was about kind of getting rid of that before I went into work. And then in addition to choosing a very, very kind of curated yoga practice that helped me open up and shut down like certain chakras in the body and like close it off, open it up, you know? So I was doing like 2-minute, 3-minute headstands before the first scene and like doing heart openers, and all of that work was going on during the day. But because we were in a pandemic and we couldn't like go to the bar and decompress, or I didn't have like, I'm all by myself out here in Virginia and everyone else is with their families. Like I didn't have that community and that kind of like decompression, like blanket when I came home. So it definitely manifested itself in exercise, working out, and alcohol.
I think having a solid home life, or just a solid relationship with, you know, with your instrument, the thing, like being able to disconnect, and also understanding that for self-preservation, you know, I need to rest, I need to unplug, I need to think, and I need to think about what I've learned, ask my scene partners how their show was, and keep mining for you know, a truth, or just keep mining. So having, you know, being able to walk away from, you know, the theater, even, you know, the Guthrie, man, there are 10 shows a week. I mean, who wants to see this at 10:30 in the morning? Students, but whatever. But even 8 shows a week, like just being able to have a relationship with yourself as an actor, to be like, okay, that was that. And so now I go to my life and my family, or my children, or my exercise, or whatever. It has nothing, it's only in service, so that you know, like Harry Lennox, he's like, it's a blood sport, you know what I mean? So it's like an athlete that you train, and to just leave it there. And but like you, Jessika, I mean, I'd wake up and, you know, just, it's in my dreams, it's just permeating all facets of my being. But just being able to separate, and I think that's having a healthier relationship, which I've, you know, grown to do with the work, and not be so reactionary, but just be more curious and trying to just, it's in service, you know. So like I would hate it, you know, being like hungover, like it's like or being too full of food, or being, you know, having not enough rest, or whatever, like that would be so frustrating, because my instrument would not work in the way that I needed to work, you know what I mean? Especially for this muscular, you know, language. So, you know, self-care is it's vital, important, but it's in service, so that I can be 190% the next day for the show. So it's a great question.
Dieris, do you have another question for us?
Yes, we have a lot of great questions. So I'll just ask this next one from one of our Shake Race scholars, Dr. Amberine Dottaboy. So she asked a really good question. She says, Emilia's speech in this scene also seems to be designed to elicit laughter. I wonder at this persistent strain of comedy and how it undermines the tragedy. You know, I'll just say that, Fran, when I really enjoyed your Emilia in this reading, and I laughed as you were reading it, but not in a comedic way, more in a, for me, it was more like, you get them, girl, or you go, girl, like get him, you know what I mean? So I'm wondering if anyone else had that same feeling, or if it was more comedic for you.
I wasn't obviously playing it for laughter. And I don't, you know, it's interesting. We talked earlier about the comedy in this play. I have no memory of anyone laughing at Iago or Emilia in any of the productions I've either been in or have seen. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't happen, yeah? But that was apparently not the direction anyone was going for any of the Iagos I've seen, or the Amelias. This Amelia that I read today, I think, was a little lighter than the Amelia I played the last time, who sort of let loose with those private conversations. This is a small conversation. You know, Amelia doesn't say much in the opening act of this play, but she gets to be kind of a chatterbox if there's just a few people or one other person there. So her trying to figure this out, and I think one of my favorite things about this scene we just read is that she actually says, oh, it was some idiot that Iago that made you think I had slept with the Moor. You know, I always forget that. It's like, oh, yeah, okay. Yes, so she is aware of these kinds of people being in the world. But I think Iago is the consummate actor. He has fooled everyone, including his wife. I think she knows he sleeps around. I think, you know, he's a womanizer, yeah. But I don't think she believes he is capable of what he actually does in this play. I think that comes as a great shock to her. But that's an opinion. But yeah, I don't think it's funny. I think, and I agree with you, Darius, that yes, because people know what's happening and know what has happened and what will happen, it is amusing, yes, that Amelia is coming up with this stuff. Wow, it must be some scurvy guy who wants a new job. Really? How ironic that you think that's who it is. Okay. Yeah.
I will admit I laughed on the inside. I tried not to do it out loud, but it was because you called him out. And I was like, she just calls him out. Like, nobody calls Iago out in this whole play. And then all of a sudden, she's like literally calling, and also because he's justifying at the beginning of the play, right? That's his whole reason for doing this to Othello. The fact that you call him out so directly in that moment, I was like, I like, maybe it's more of a guffaw and less of like a proper laugh, you know? But I just like, in that moment, Fran, and when you were going and you were all powerful, I was just like, I was also looking at Peter's face. like it was maybe just the fact that he hadn't said anything for 5 seconds, but like in my mind it was like there was almost like a little bit of like he was caught for a second, because I hadn't thought about Desdemona also being there, like that he's been called out with other people in this. It was just like I just really as an audience member in that moment appreciated the call out, and that was where that humor came from me, because that's a character who doesn't actually get called out for so much of the play.
Indeed.
It's such a juicy thing for the audience, because this is what we were talking about last week, is that Iago's making this up, as you know, and I think at some point it gets out of his control. Like you can't be that Machiavellian. You can't manipulate that. And just to see, because in that moment, like, and I hadn't thought, I mean, and yeah, just I didn't know that I was making a face or anything, but like just thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, if Desdemona, if a seed of doubt gets planted, like if his thing starts to unravel on the wrong, you know, if it starts to burn in the wrong, you know, the whole thing's gonna go up. So just that tension of him being like, oh shit, you know, like my wife knows that, I mean, she's married to me, so she knows me. So like it depends, and then there's so many things that you can pour into it. But if this thing starts to go off the rails now, then I'm not gonna get, you know, and so like, oh, God, you okay? And so I don't know if that's humor in the sense of like, you know, but it's titillating. It's like, you know, it's doing something to you that's like may manifest itself in laughter, but it's like it's like a shock because something is happening, you know.
And he says, speak indoors, right? Which I think he says at the end of the play when she's calling him out again, which is like, I think a colloquial saying for like, lower your voice. Yeah. But that like, I think for me, I think that's a hilarious thing to say too. I do think there's a lot of humor in this moment. I agree with Maddie. I think I was laughing too, because I was like, oh, this could go in any direction, right? Which is what you really want the audience to think, not that it's a canned plot, right?
Juicy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, everyone's like on edge. I mean, it's
what's gonna happen?
Like a psychological thriller, you know, and the journey that takes you on. But I totally agree that the moments of lightness and uncertainty, I think, are more kind of heart pounding and interesting and juicy than, you know, a completely premeditated, like successful, perfect plan.
Yeah. Or the potted plot, right? Like that you know, like it doesn't matter who says what, you know, it's going in this direction. And I do think that if the Iago, and I have friends, so I just saw a couple of years ago a major league production where the audience laughed with Iago when he says, strangle her in the sheets. And the audience was like, bah! And you could see the actor playing Othello, like his soul dying each time they laughed. And there were a lot of reasons for that we could go into, but I do think that happens more often than we'd like. Dearest, do you have another question for us?
Yes, and I think we can probably wrap up on this one. This is one by Matthew. So the handkerchief was played a major role in this particular scene, so I'll ask this one. Matthew says, Othello's history of the handkerchief stands out to me as a rare reference to a home life before Venetian violence shapes his adult life. How does a performance work with or around or against the minimal childhood history of Othello?
Keith, I feel like you should hop in here.
Well, I think everything that humanizes, I mean, I'm a champion of humanizing the characters, and everything that humanizes the characters is deep and intense and constant creative backstory, whatever that is, and sharing it with your fellow actors in an ensemble playing situation. That whole story of the handkerchief and where it came from, you know, there's Ian Smith's essay about the black handkerchief and what that is, which is such I encourage everybody to go read it, you know, speaks to a life of ancestors that he knows something about, that he's not here without, and they inform everything that he says and does. And Shakespeare makes him a Christian, you know, or at least espousing Christian values, I think perhaps because that's who he's fighting for. So he's sort of started to say this stuff so much that he's slightly begun to believe it, you know. But I don't think it's the religion that he is grounded in. If he's grounded in any, I think his religion is ultimately war. So, you know, whether it be Islam or Christianity, you know, he takes it all with a bit of a grain of salt. But there is this backstory of his life, and it is incumbent upon the actor or group of actors to build that, or him to build it, and for his ensemble to support him in it, so that it all becomes real.
Alfredo, do you want to hop in?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting part because it speaks to like sort of this like mysticism that I think is really interesting. I'm not quite sure what else to say about it other than that, but it just feels like sort of otherworldly, or like a world that seems forgotten and left behind. And I just always find that fascinating.
Yeah, I've seen or participated in productions where we really endow that handkerchief with a lot of it's present. She has it from the beginning. Desdemona has it from the beginning. She's had it, so it's just like it's not just this thing that just pops up. And then there's also the contradiction that, you know, he says one thing to Desdemona about the origins of the handkerchief, and then there's another, you know, when he after he's killed her, there's a sort of a different timeline, different story that's behind it. But, you know, I've always found that, you know, like, what does it mean to ask these questions? What does it mean to be 7 years old and embroiled? Like, what does that mean? So the research that I found were like, when these naval ships would grapple, they would have these little boys come onto the deck of the ship and pour sand on the deck of the ship so that when the blood was spilled, that the soldiers or the fighters wouldn't slip. And then they would have to go and hide somewhere and hope the ship wasn't sunk or taken over. But just seeing that and having that handkerchief with him since then, you know, holding on to, that's the only thing. Like, and so when he's been enslaved, and he's like, what, it's like what is that, Pulp Fiction, where Christopher Walken is talking about the watch, and he's like, but this handkerchief has survived all of this, this life of that, to just endow it, so that, because that's the only thing that I feel like Shakespeare gives him, any physical manifestation of history. So, which is a whole lot. It's a whole lot. It's so implausible. You know what I mean? It's so, but that's all you get. And so, like, friend, you take him, you take it at face value. These are extraordinary circumstances. So this is an extraordinary thing that sorry. Go ahead.
So yep.
Oh, sorry, just add one thing really quickly. Is it's interesting to watch a soldier try to navigate the battlefield of love, and he's holding on, because war is something that is very concrete, whereas love is something that's very abstract. So to have this handkerchief as sort of a representation of this abstract idea that he's put this mystical quality in is really interesting, and that's why he puts so much into that handkerchief and the importance of it.
Great.
That's it.
All right. We have one more session next week. We'll wrap up the play and have one more discussion. Make sure that you join us and submit more questions. Thank you all. It was a beautiful reading today.